What up, everybody? This is Nothing But Bangers, aka MBB, aka Bangers, aka I'm back with a gigantic video that's going to be discussing arguably the biggest Pokemon Pocket tournament that we might ever see. So I'm going to be going over those details. I've got a first place interview from Day's Pocket Weekly from a couple weeks ago that I didn't showcase yet, but I'm going to showcase a lot of things in this video. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. A couple of weekends ago, we saw Day Pocket Weekly's tournament won by a Greninja and Giratina variant. There were a few other decks that have kind of popped up in popularity since then, but I wanted to take a second to give you guys the deck list, and then I have the interview with Habu. So shout out to Habu. There was a little bit of a language kind of barrier that we had to kind of come across, and it took them a few days to get back to me, and obviously I responded by like not uploading a video for like a whole week and a half just about. So like that's his whole thing. But this was the deck list that they used, and I believe in the most recent Pocket Weekly for Day, we actually saw similar decks as well. So this deck really has taken off, but very straightforward deck. Basically, you're utilizing Rare Candy to get Greninja out. You're using Snorlax as somewhat of a buffer that can absorb damage or be a little bit aggro in terms of maybe you get Berry to resolve early before you go ahead and go all in with that Giratina. It's got a decent amount of heal, and then it's got one Rocky Helmet. So pretty cool deck all around. You can definitely see some synergy, and Greninja can fix a lot of damage. Again, I stated in other videos, like Greninja may be probably the most consistent stage 2 that we've seen in the entire game, in terms of it's pretty much popped up almost every single meta. So I know Sush is a very famous player in terms of they always play Greninja or try to find ways to play it, and I know Sush is just loving the Greninja, getting all this attention. But let's get to the interview. I tried to ask as many questions as I could that, you know, at least were relevant to you guys, maybe gives you a little bit of a last second to, you know, maybe reconsider or give you some good information to prepare for the Day 10K, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But basically, I started out by asking, you know, what made them choose the deck? And they said that they chose the deck because there were no clear matchups where I was at a disadvantage. And it had an advantage against Solgaleo EX or Solgaleo EX. And then, you know, that's one of the most common decks in the metagame. So I think like just pausing right there and just kind of considering, like, as you're prepping for the 10K tournament, which arguably is going to be the largest Pokemon Pocket tournament to ever happen, it's important to kind of like think about the metagame and, you know, what you anticipate seeing. And it's really important to not necessarily play a deck that is just going to be terrible into that matchup. So I think that this is a great example. So the next thing that I said is, or asked was, how do you prepare for tournaments like this? Do you play a lot of ranked? Do you play other tournaments, or do you have a play group? And Habu was really gracious to kind of give up some of the special sauce, right? So they participate in a lot of tournaments in Japan and also play ranked matches very seriously. They think it's important to predict the metagame and bring a deck that suits the environment. And I love that word, environment. You see that a lot in a lot of my interviews with players that are from Japan. There's like a translation thing where environment is like one of the words that is consistently used. And for the English-speaking people, that's basically just like metagame, right? What's the metagame going to look like? But again, also they're also a part of a team. The team is constantly thinking about decks and the metagame. So this is the result of that. But again, 4 Japanese people were also a part of this team. The next part of the interview, I kind of, you know, wanted to give them a little bit of love because, again, it's very common, especially in my content that I've talked about, that the Japanese players have like a really cool take on the game. You even saw Japanese players playing stuff like Magneton going back to Genetic Apex, so you knew that they were ready to cook when Magnezone came out. But again, I love the dedication. I love the innovation. And my next question was, do you think that this deck could still have success in future tournaments, you know, now that the secret is out, right? Like now that the sauce is out. They said that now that the winning deck has become famous and measures have been taken to counter it, I don't think it will be as easy as it was this time. However, there is still a good chance of winning. So they still think that this is a good deck. And I think we've continued to see that in other tournaments since then, because again, this is from a couple weeks ago. I mean, this, you know, the meta changes really quickly, and you still see Giratina, Snorlax, and Greninja in a lot of tournaments, right? And it still has some decent matchup threats. The last question that I wanted to ask was if they were planning on playing the Day 10K on May 17th, which is coming up very soon, and how do you like you or your team's chances to do well. And Habu was super thankful, or excuse me, super gracious to go ahead and answer this question, and I really appreciate them doing this. But they were like, I want to participate, still thinking about it. The time of the event is very tough for Japanese people, and I have to stay up all night to participate because I have a job. So again, that's another important, interesting factor, right? This is going to be a tournament that for one part of the world is going to be in a very strange time frame, right? So, it's going to be fascinating to see how the Ursa Pocket Weekly, how the Grails GGG or GG tournament plays out. So let's talk about Grails and let's talk about this 10K tournament. I couldn't do this video without giving a little bit of a breakdown on Grails.ggg, who is the sponsor of the 10K tournament. And I'm going to try my best to toe the line here because there's a lot of things at play. And, a lot of people probably don't even care about this kind of part of the dynamics of this kind of tournament. But, we, as content creators and people that just play the game and enjoy the game, I'm very similar to a lot of you. We also talk to each other. And so I've talked to Ursi about this. I had heard about this. She had kind of given me a little bit of information about this. I even took very nice professional headshots that didn't even get used in the graphic. I can't believe that, Ursi. How'd you leave your boy off? I can't believe that. But anyways, I'm kidding. But anyways, I did reach out to Ursi to kind of voice some of the sentiment from the community, because the first thing that people think about is $10,000 in prize support. That's a lot. And we've already seen other tournaments have issues with paying people out. Not Ursi Day in particular, but other people, right? And so some people had some questions, and then obviously Grails is only able to be accessed and used in the United States at the time being, and who knows when things are going to open up for other parts of the world. With that being said, I just want to point out, in my experience on the website and other experiences of people that I've talked to, the website has been decent. It's been fine. I think that the worst thing that's happened is the site went down for over 24 hours and there was no Discord announcement or anything like that. Okay. The other thing that I would point out about Grails.gg is that the last time I checked, none of the people that were on the graphic, from Ursi to whoever else was on there, I know that some Magic Pros, some Lurkon, nobody is in the Discord, right? So it's one of those things where I could see why some people would be yo, this looks a little weird. They don't offer refunds right now. They're saying that they're going to audit their pack odds, and they don't explain who's doing the auditing. So I can understand, how people are a little bit unsure about the platform itself. And then there's the whole element of this is gambling, right? You're basically gambling on odds and you're hoping that the odds are correct, right? And for those who don't know what Grails GG is, basically it's a website. And by the way, if you want to sign up and you're in America, there's my promo, right? You can use my promo. Again, if you want to, sign up for Grails.gg, which again, you're going to get free amp for entering the Ursa Day tournament that she's doing. That's the 10K. You're going to get free amp for participating. They're probably going to give you a code. But if you sign up with my code, you're going to get 500 amp, and then I get 1,000. And you can use that amp. It's the currency on the platform to basically open packs. And the packs that you can open, so basically you can open all sorts of different packs, and they have odds. Personally, I'm more of a fan of the Slab City, because a lot of the time it's a lot easier to trust that, hey, the slab has a grade on it, it's certified, it's real. Whereas if you buy just a ungraded card, it's a little dicey on what the condition might be. But again, so Slab City, for example, you have a 0.08% to get a Charizard when you open this pack, but you have to have enough of the currency, which is amp, to actually open the pack. So again, a lot of people will ask about the odds and how they're certified and all that. And again, right now it's just trust until the audit happens at the end of the summer. Again, the business model is it's really quickly, I'll try to do this. It's very smart. Okay, basically you have a collection of cards, graded and some ungraded. You have booster packs, you have booster boxes, and basically you put them on a website and you say, hey, if you buy my currency, you have a chance at getting some of these different cards. And so if you spend $1,000 on a graded card as the business, you might be able to get back, 3 times as much that as people try to rip and open that pack, right, to get that card. So like there's it's from a business point of view, like makes a lot of sense in my opinion. It obviously they're using the tournament as a targeted ad to get people in the door and on the website, hopefully buying their amps, right, buying the currency with hard-earned money, that those people go to work to earn or whatever. And, they're hoping that they spend the currency amp to get these cards, and kind of it's a gamble. Okay. And I have had friends that have opened cards on this platform already. They haven't had them shipped yet because they're trying to decide like whether or not they want to do that. Like they might want to just trade it in and keep opening packs. My plan is to open Slab City. So like, I'm just trying to save up enough to free roll, basically. I don't want to put any money in yet, and I want to get Slab City and hopefully get a good pull and maybe cash in on it and then maybe buy some, right? But again, like none of this is financial advice. Obviously, you could have skipped this part of the video, but again, this is just kind of the idea of the platform. And that's kind of a little bit of a backstory as to like how some people have kind of conversated about it in the, around the Pokemon Pocket community. Now let's talk about the tournament. Back in 2012, I was really fortunate enough to be able to travel and play in YCS Long Beach, which at the time for Yu-Gi-Oh! And every card game in general, it was the largest tournament that had ever been hosted for a trading card game. And ever since then, like there's been other records. Like I looked it up, and like there was like a 7,443 person in Japan tournament in Japan. I think it was for Yu-Gi-Oh! As well. And then for like most entrants in an online trading card game tournament, there was like 6,374. But that was like played locally, so like I don't know how that works, right? So anyways, like the thing that I'm pointing out about this is like these kind of events are like spectacles, right? Like it's more about just being a part of it. Like I don't expect to win if I play, right? Like I just expect to try to play the best of my abilities and then, kind of watch everything unfold. And ultimately speaking, like there's nothing that you're risking except your time. So if you're like on the fence of like, oh, I don't know if the sponsor is going to blah, blah, blah. Like I can tell you this. According to my sources, that everything should be good on that, right? But obviously, I'm just a guy on YouTube. So the question becomes like, do you want to spend the time to play in the tournament? And in my opinion, I don't think there's really a downside to doing that, assuming that like you have the time, right? Like if you have a job that you need to go do, like probably go do your job, right? But again, like I'm going to be a part of this because like for one, I just kind of want to be a part of like history in a way, right? And I think that it'll be really cool to look back on and say, yeah, dude, remember that crazy 10K tournament that had 3,000 people or whatever and had it broke limitless. Like I kind of want to be a part of that, right? Like I kind of want to see how it plays out. And I've seen like I said, a lot of conversations about it, and ultimately speaking, like as of the making of this video, which depending on when you're watching this, the tournament may be over, it may be ongoing, or it may be before it, but there's almost 3,000 people already, right? And so again, like I could expect seeing, as many as like 3,500, maybe 4,000 people in this tournament, but we'll see. As to however many will actually show up, that's a whole nother question. And, in terms of like, what do you play in this tournament? Like, look, it's impossible to really say, right? Like it's going to be a crapshoot. And I think the thing that a lot of people have kind of realized about Pokemon Pocket is like, if you can just dodge your worst matchup, you're usually in a pretty good spot, right? Or if you only play your worst matchup maybe 1 or 2 times, you're usually in a pretty good spot. So depending on that, like, hey, that's kind of something that I would think about. If you wanted to actually be like analytical and look at other tournaments and like use Trainer Heal to see the matchup spread and like use Pokemon meta and look at the tier list, like, look, Giratina is just really good. Like it's just a good card. Rare Candy is just a really good card. So any deck that can play either of those or both of those is probably going to have a pretty good shot at winning this tournament. So whether it's Grass because you think that Grass lines up very well into the meta, whether it's Fire because you think Charizard and Cineroar can really take down Giratina and Darkrai, and also they're just really tanky, whether you think it's just classic Giratina Darkrai because they're just really consistent at what they do and you have a lot of room for trainer tech. All of those choices are very good, right? And then there's a million other choices that you can make, right? You can play, something with Oricorio and just say, hey, I'm going to try to target those EX decks. I'm going to play Rampardo Scarchomp. Like whatever you decide to choose to play, I would just be very comfortable with it. But in terms of like the best decks, I think that the best decks are either playing Rare Candy or they're playing Giratina, because Giratina is the best Pokemon in the game. right? Like that's pretty clear, right? And Rare Candy is arguably the best trainer card. Or I guess I should say item card, right? It's the best item card. You know, you could argue Pokeball, sure, whatever. But in terms of like the most dynamic cards, I think those are probably two cards that you definitely want to look at playing. And as far as like specific archetypes, again, there's a million Giratina variants. There's grass decks. You know, we're still trying to figure out, is Meowscarada still viable? You know, then there's Greninja. Greninja's is really good in a lot of the decks that it's played in. Obviously Charizard and Cineroar. You got Turtonator variants. You've even got people that are trying stuff like Weezing, right? And so like there's a lot of choices, but again, I would just say, whatever you do, charge your freaking phone, okay? Have food and snacks ready so that way you can snack, you know, during the tournament. This is going to be a marathon. It's not going to be a sprint. And obviously know the rules about intentional draws and things like that, but definitely like be aware of the situation that you're going into. I made this video a long time ago, how to prepare for tournaments, and I'm just echoing those statements, right? Like know the rules on ties, right? For Swiss and for Top Cut. Definitely have your phone charged, be ready to have snacks, food, so that way you can survive throughout the game, right? Throughout the tournament. Because the thing that you don't want to do in tournaments like this, you don't want to beat yourself. And I've said that so many times in my other videos about me. I never want to be a player that beats themselves. And in a 10 round, 12 round tournament, all played in one day, and then the next day is Top Cut or whatever, you can slowly get so fatigued that towards the end of the day, you're just like not as sharp. And so like, what's one of the ways that you can kind of offset that? Have little snacks, obviously have, hydration, but don't beat yourself. Play a deck that you're comfortable with and don't beat yourself. And at the end of the day, remember, if your goal is to win, that's going to be very difficult. My number one goal in playing in tournaments like this is play the best that I can, right? Play the best that I can, and whatever happens from there happens. Thank you guys so much for letting me be background noise, entertainment, or hey, maybe you learned something. I really appreciate you all letting me be part of the Pokemon Pocket community. I hope that you support the channel by hitting a thumbs up, maybe subscribing to the channel so you get more content. And I look forward to recapping this tournament and kind of breaking down what happened. And until next time, I'll catch you later. Peace.